Hi everyone, me again, Pistol Crossbow fan. This is just a follow-up video really to the one that I made yesterday, bearing in mind Halloween's soon upon us. 30 days left I believe, and as you'll know, because I mentioned it yesterday, there's a couple of people amongst others that I subscribe to that are going to do some Halloween story videos themselves. So this is my contribution, if you like. Two stories. I was thinking after making the one yesterday about other events in my life that are sort of unexplained and perhaps a little bit weird. So I've got two stories for you. The first one again involves myself and my brother when we, oh nice bit of lightning there, when we were living at home, and this would have been mid to late 70s, still living in Ventnor on the Isle of Wight, and we were of an age by this time where we could be quite happily left alone, because we were both sensible anyway, by our mum and dad whilst they went out for a little while to get some shopping or something like that, which is what happened on this particular occasion. But I do remember they came back from the shopping to find us both sat outside on the step leading to the front door, and they couldn't quite understand why we were sat there, because there was no reason for us to be sat outside. Anyway, when they asked us, we told them and basically we were both indoors at the time, downstairs, and we heard from somewhere a very loud noise all of a sudden. It sounded like an alarm going off. And after giving it some thought, just for a few seconds, we identified it as the typical 1970s Teasmade that they had by the side of their bed. So we went upstairs, and sure enough, there it was by the side of their bed. The light on top, which is an aid to help wake you up in the morning once the tea is ready, was blinking on and off, and this very loud alarm buzzer noise was going on and off, and which was a bit weird in itself. So we went to switch it off at the plug, and not only was it switched off at the plug, but it was actually unplugged, and this thing didn't take batteries. So basically that's why we were sat outside. I think that's quite freaky. Anyway, that was just a short one. The other one that I'm going to tell you now relates to just me, and it was in 1989, if I remember rightly. There's a little village only about a mile away from Ventnor called Bonchurch, and in this village there is, well, I suppose you'd call it a mansion house, which had been bought by a company that was using it for activity holidays for schools and youth groups and field studies, that type of place. And it was called the East Dean Centre, if you want to look it up, in Bonchurch. Very old building, some parts of it sort of at least 400 years old. Quite a bit of history to the place. It's been used over the years as many different things. There were nuns there at one time, there were monks there, lots of different things. It was a family home at one point many years ago. The English poet Swinburne lived there for quite a few years, and his friend used to come to visit, and that was Charles Dickens. So it's got a lot of history to it. Anyway, they were advertising for somebody to teach the various sports and activities, and because I had a history in lots of different sports, even though I wasn't very old, I was involved with archery clubs and karate and all sorts of things. I went along for the job. Was very pleased when I got the job. So that's what I was going to do, teach these various sports and activities. And also, because it was a live-in job, which suited me fine at the time, be what was known as the duty person. So basically, of a night time, if any of the groups that were staying there had a problem, they were told on arrival which door to come and knock on, so that I could help them, which obviously was quite important, particularly with those groups, because we had a lot of foreign groups during the summer weeks and months, where really the English was very poor. So they needed to get someone that could assess the situation and then deal with it appropriately. So that was my job, duty person and teaching the various sports and activities. On my first day there, I was told not to do anything work-wise, but just to wander around, because it's quite a big building, to get my bearings. I'd been told when I'd mentioned to someone that I was going to be working there, oh, look out for the ghost. I said, what do you mean the ghost? Apparently there was a ghost of a monk that was seen if you were outside and looked up at the window of room 21. Sometimes you could see this ghost monk looking back at you. Sort of brushed it off really, didn't think any more of it. Anyway, bearing in mind I'd never been in this building ever in my life before, I just had a good old wander around. All thoughts of ghosts and monks and things completely had gone out of my head by now, because I was concentrating on doing my job. Anyway, I walked up this particular corridor. I didn't know where I was going. The rooms, well, if they were numbered, I didn't take any notice, so it wasn't as if I could logically work out where I was heading. But I just knew that when I got to the end of this corridor, there was going to be room 21, and I don't know how I knew that. Anyway, of course, this brought up memories of this ghost story. So I got to the end, sure enough, there was room 21. And I thought, well, I'm not just going to stand here, turn around and walk away. I'm going to open the door, because face your fears sort of thing. So I opened the door, and it was just like any of the other rooms. 4 or 5 bunk beds, great big heavy cast iron ones, a sink and 1 or 2 other little cupboards for the kids to put their clothes in, and that was it. Didn't give it another thought. Anyway, I started my job, did the old duty person bit, had 1 or 2 people knock on the door, leaders knock on the door saying, can you tell me where so and so is, or that sort of thing. And then over the space of perhaps 3 or 4 weeks, foreign groups both times, one was I think French and the other Italian if I remember rightly. Oh, excuse me. One night there was a knock at the door, quite an urgent knock at the door, and it was a French lady. And she spoke very good English, and she explained to me that they had a problem in one of the rooms with one of the kids. And as she was showing me where this room was, she was explaining to me what had happened. And apparently they'd been laying in bed, one obviously on top of the other in these bunk beds, and the lower child had used his feet to push the top bunk up an inch or so, and he thought it was very funny just to keep letting it down again quickly. What he didn't realise the last time he did it was that this child at the top bunk had put his hands right at the point where the 2 bunks met, and actually got his finger almost severed because of the weight of this, plus the weight of his own body of course, on his finger when the bunk bed was let down again by this one underneath. So I had that to deal with. Guess which room it was in? Room 21. Anyway, that was all sorted out. And then, lo and behold, a couple of weeks after that, we had another grouping of Italians and frantic banging on my door, early hours of the morning, probably about 5 o'clock in the morning, and was told that they had a serious medical problem with one of their children, apparently, who had gone to open the window in the morning, rather than use any sort of window opening device, just put their hand on the glass and pushed it, and their hand went straight through the glass, and then they pulled it back rather quickly. So from probably the wrist up to about halfway up to their elbow was just wide open. And when I got there, they were laying in the bath. No one seems to know what to do. Fortunately, I had some rudimentary first aid training, because I had also been in the fire service by this time. And so sorted that out, elevated it, etc., wrapped it up, called for the ambulance, and suddenly realised we were stood in room 21. Now you tell me what that's all about. No other incidents in the year or so that I was there, but both incidents happened in room 21. So there you go. Weapon collector Mike, if you're watching this, by the way, if you want to use this on your Halloween video, feel free, and everybody else enjoy it, and I'm off to bed. Good night.